I'm working for a local council. On today's panel, we shall be discussing career development, including how to get onto the career ladder, what to do in order to move up, and how to get a seat at the decision-making table. I've got some esteemed panel with me today, and they shall be introducing themselves before we move into the main part of today's podcast. I shall be starting off with Brother Goke. Could you tell us about yourself and your career path?
Yeah, thank you very much, Sister Mo. It's a privilege to be here. My name is Olagoke Ajayi, and I'm a chartered accountant. I got qualified while I was still in uni, and after which my career kicked off. Started with a very small accounting firm, basically auditing, accounting, and tax, and then spent a couple of years. Then after which I left Nigeria, relocated to the UK to do a master's degree. The master's was interestingly in human resources management. And after which I came back to Nigeria. But before then, I switched to industry. And by industry, I mean um, a school. So I was a finance officer there, worked for about a year and a half, then came back to Nigeria and I was back in practice, which is accounting, audit, and tax again. I was with one of the big fours, EY, Ernst& Young, and I was there for about a couple of years. Then I came back to the UK, and ever since I've been there. Currently, still rising up the ranks. I'm an assistant manager, and that's how my career has been so far.
Thank you very much, Raguke. That's a very interesting synopsis of your career to date, especially being able to switch between the industry and being able to move from different career, well, what you did your master's in, into something quite different now.
Yeah.
So I'm sure we'll be exploring what that looks like
Yeah,
later
sure.
on in this podcast. Next, I shall be introducing Brother Ephraim. Thank you for joining us today. Could you introduce yourself and tell us more about your career path?
Thank you. Thank you so much. And it's also a privilege to be here, and I'm glad to be here. My name is Ephraim, like you mentioned, Ephraim Onuigbe. I'm also a child accountant and got qualified while I was still in school. Then afterwards, I worked in a consulting firm as an ERP consultant, what you call the enterprise resource planner. Then afterwards, I moved up to join EY as a task consultant. EY is one of the big four firms in the world in accounting. So I did that for a number of years. Then I moved to audit before I relocated to the UK. And in the UK, I have been in the UK for some years now, and I have practiced as an auditor as well. And I'm currently a manager with Grant Thornton. As part of my career, I have a CISA, that means a Certified Information System Auditor. So, and I have written two books, one, Succeeding in Your Career, and the second one, Let's Talk About Money. These two books are also available on Amazon and on my website.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much, Ephraim. That's a very interesting introduction. We definitely know that you're qualified from tax to audit, as well as an author. So that's always a great thing to have in terms of the skills that that brings into a workplace environment. So again, we'd like to explore that in more depth once we get into the podcast. And last but not least, I've got Brother Emmanuel. It's really good to have you join us today. Can you
Thank
tell
you.
us about yourself? And I know you have a very interesting career path, and I'm sure our audience would love to hear about that.
Thank you so much. So my name is Emmanuel, Emmanuel Gazier. Like you said, my career is kind of unconventional, so to speak, and well, that's literally how I kind of do things unconventionally. But yes, so I started in architecture. My background is in architecture, trained through up to the master's level in architecture. Then practiced a bit when I still have a little bit of practice here and there. But started practicing architecture and started also going into branding, brand management. And I noticed that I had a flair for different things, especially business. And I was also kind of, I'll say favored to be able to go into different things and have mentors who allowed me to quote and unquote experiment, with their businesses and to try out new things. So at a point, I was able to then manage different companies and entered into entrepreneurship. So this led me more into the business side and then into strategy, operations management. So I then worked as a corporate services manager for a firm in Nigeria. Then at a point, I started seeing the benefits of, both design and then business, but I didn't want to specify just, well, stay mostly in design. And then I started transitioning. I did an MBA in the UK, specializing in entrepreneurship and new venture design, new venture
Great
creation.
course.
And that kind of led me into innovation strategy, and into consulting. I currently work as an innovation manager, innovation
Big
project
word.
manager. Yeah, it's
Hopefully, we'll explore what that means
Yeah.
later on in this podcast.
so what that is really is for the UK government. I try to help achieve their net zero ambitions.
Yeah, very important.
Try to help support the initiatives that kind of bring new innovations into the country. And yes, so that's kind of where I'm at. I keep trying new things.
Very
and exploring new
interesting.
things.
And I'm glad to hear that, sustainability and net zero, because again, that's some of the 21st century skills that a lot of employers are looking for nowadays. Okay. So it's very interesting, and thank you everyone for introducing yourself. I've picked up a lot of keywords here. There's branding, there's human resources, there's being an author, and I appreciate that, we have two tax managers on the panel, but I'm hoping that this won't be dominated by tax and audit. No one is going to be auditing our work, but we do want to audit what it means to have a career. So there is a lot of talk between, among especially new graduates, do I want to go straight into the job market? I know, Brago, you talked about having a master's. Brian Manuel, you also have a master's. Fortunately, I also have a master's in economics. But between that transition of having a master's and getting a real job, what does that look like in terms of, is it important to have a master's in order to be able to get a job? Can I go to Brago and give us a human resource dimension on that?
Okay, so is it important to have a master's degree before launching into the labor market?
Yeah.
Well, it depends.
Okay.
Right. It depends on the industry which you're going into.
Mm-hmm.
So if I pick accounting, for example, I would say it's not compulsory.
Okay.
And the reason is because in accounting you have about 6 different dimensions you can go to. You can either sit with financial reporting, you can sit with auditing, you can sit with tax, you can sit with financial management, you can sit with internal auditing. It depends.
Yeah.
Right?
So there are various ways.
That you can do it. Yeah. And each one of them requires a basic entry-level skills which you need to start with. And
can you tell us a little bit more about those basic level skills that you need, that, once you're out of university, or even if you don't go to university, what do those basic skills look like?
So basic skills, for example, would be at that entry level, you need to be numerical.
You need to be
numerical.
Okay.
You need to be comfortable with numbers.
Okay.
You need to also have you need to have a problem-solving skill.
Okay. So numerical skills, problem-solving skills okay.
At the minimum. Why? Because what you be exposed to is a bit of understanding client's information and the client's business. Yeah. So you're basically interpreting what the numbers say as it helps you understand what the business is doing.
Yeah.
You also need to have a bit of IT skills.
Okay.
And IT skills in this sense means understanding like simple Microsoft Office tools. So you're looking at Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint at the minimum. Because at the entry level, these are the tools you would be using to do your work. Okay. Now, the question then is...
Just before you move away from those basic skills, there's one thing that, I appreciate that in accounting you need numerical skills. But would you say that communication skills is also one of those basic skills that you need
Oh yeah,
at that level?
definitely, because you would be speaking to clients,
Okay.
you would be speaking to stakeholders, you'd be speaking with colleagues and people above you. So communication skills goes from oral and written.
Yeah.
You'll be sending emails. You'll be leading meetings.
I like the way you're breaking this down to a
Yeah,
very pragmatic level
you
in
would-
terms of
yeah.
what happens
Yeah.
once you get into the workplace, interacting with different stakeholders,
Yeah.
360, you're interacting with people up, people to the side, people below you.
Yeah.
So that's very interesting
Yeah.
that you're
So
able to break that down
if
for
we
us.
stop at that phase,
Mhm.
we've identified numerical communication problem solving.
Yeah.
Would you say a master's degree is needed at that point? Not really.
Okay.
Not really.
Okay. Just before, I'll just hold that thought there and go to Brian Manuel, because this is a slightly different field in terms of coming from architecture to branding. What kind of skills do you need in your industry, and do you need to have a master's in order to be able to excel to get a job in your field?
So I think I'll come from a general perspective before I
Okay.
go into maybe architecture and the
Mhm.
likes. In the world that we are in today, you really don't need a master's
Mhm.
to get into the market, right? It's pretty much if you can make yourself as desirable as possible, right? And in terms of making yourself as desirable as possible, you're pretty much looking at how best you can add value and communicate that you can add value.
Yeah.
So it's one thing to have the ability to add the value, but people and whatsoever company must be able to see that you have that value. You must be able to show that, because in a way it's a two-way marketing
Yeah.
thing. They know you want to work with them, right? But they need to also know that you
What value you bring
have
in.
that value. So it's both ways. I think a lot of times people look at it from the angle of, oh, I just want to work with that company, but they don't look at it from what does that company really need.
Yeah.
I feel like the world is in a place where if the position is not available at the moment and they need that kind of value,
Yeah.
it can be created.
That's a very interesting
Yeah.
thought in terms of being able to create value and almost create a role for yourself by being able to tell your employer what value you're bringing.
Yeah.
Just sticking with that topic of value, I'm going to go to Brother Ephraim. So we've established that there's some sort of consensus here that we don't necessarily need masters in order to be able to get a job. I'm just wondering, from your perspective, these basic skills of communication, numerical skills, being able to add value, how can you get those skills outside of an academic environment?
That's quite an interesting question. Most foundational principles of teaching, they already incorporate these learnings into their curriculum. So even if there's some of my colleagues that are school leavers,
Yeah.
so means that they didn't even go to the university. So they went to just what we call secondary schools,
Yeah.
and they get to be taught these things. So at the most basic level,
Yeah.
you get to learn these things. So you learn the numerical skills, problem solving skills, and you pick up the communication skill, because everybody does maths and English from school. So yeah, but
Even
that's
from a
just
very young age. Yeah.
that's just the basic step. But of course, to stand out from the crowd, you need to do something extra. Otherwise, you just be on the same level with everyone else. So what do? Depending on your environment, like me, I'm a church person. So
Yeah.
so volunteering in the church environment could
That's
also
a really
help.
good one.
Yeah, it could help. Then even at the school level, you can volunteer for extracurricular activities, maybe JC. Some have it. So you can develop the skills in all of those extracurricular activity. And if that's not available, I think there are also community arrangement. Some communities have some gatherings that
Yeah.
people can volunteer in. So it's just a way to interact with people. Communication is interacting with people, and once you have that constant interaction with people, you develop that skill. So like every other skill, you can pick them up everywhere. Then mathematical skill, I don't know if there is a different for learning apart from studying it on your
Yeah,
own,
yeah.
if you want to go the extra mile from what you have been taught
Yeah.
in school.
And I think when it comes to it, all we really need is just basic maths, and then you build on that, because there's some fundamental aspects of math that you get teach when you're in secondary school, when you just build on it as you go to university. Thank you for an interesting take on that. The reason I asked that question is because there's always this mismatch between skills that people have after university and the skills that they actually need in the workplace. And Brad Akwa has been very good. Brad Guke, sorry, has been very good at being able to highlight what those are to us, and you build on, how we can get those skills outside of a educational settings. It's available in church, volunteering, being able to just gather people together. That's essentially what you're doing in the workplace as well.
If I may add something. So, yes, there is the value part and being able to communicate the value, but I guess it also depends on the area that you're planning on going into. So if you're going into something like a professional service, be it architecture, medicine, law, there are standards that these professional bodies adhere by, right? And you need some form of formal training for it to show that you have been able to do that. So, for instance, in as much as we say add value, you don't want someone who didn't go to study medicine to operate on you.
Hopefully not. But that's interesting. I think what we're trying to get at is just at the very basic level, what do you need? And then as you grow in your career, then, what are those extra skills that you can start to build up? Right. Okay. So we've discussed about how to enter into this job, what you need at a very basic level. Now I want to throw out a question. What is the difference between a career and a job? Can I go to you first, Brother?
I don't mind.
Because a lot of the time we want to get a job, but when someone else says, what is your career? Can you tell us? Can you just try to unwrap that a little bit for us in terms of the sort of differences?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I would attempt to respond. It's a tricky one. A career, I'll start from a career. It's something that you see the end from the beginning. You know where it's going to end. I'll give you an example from what Koki said earlier. In my field in accounting, there is the internal auditor, there is the financial manager or finance professional, there is the audit professional, and there is the tax person. So in those fields, you have, I think the ultimate for audit, for example, is the partner.
Yeah.
So that's the end game for anyone that is going to those fields. Now, so the career is, you have seen the end and you're starting from the beginning or wherever you're starting. So a career is something you build from start to the end game. So that's how I'll look at a career and all the things in between. But for a job is mostly something that you do to survive. So maybe you just relocated to the UK, for example, and what you studied in your country is maybe agriculture, for example, and you look around, there is really nothing that's match that profession here that you can easily get a job in. So you just get something to be sane.
So something to survive, like you said, something to get by.
To get basic needs, to get food, to get shelter and clothing, things to basic needs. So over time, some people have, I don't want to delve too much, but some people have delved into, have just maintained that job profile. And I wouldn't say build a career because there's really no end game to a job. It's just something you do to meet
That's
a
a very
need.
interesting analogy, and I like how you said that a career, you can actually, you start from somewhere and you know that you're going to be rising and knowing what that path looks like in order to be able to build a career. And thank you for giving us that analysis of a partner from a junior auditor to a partner. That's really interesting. I'll just go to Brother Emmanuel in your view. Can you just explain to us what that might look like in your career path?
And in my view, so I look at career as your life's work,
Mm-hmm.
right? So like Roy from said, you're looking at the end,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm just not looking at the end. You're looking at the whole timeline. You're looking at what is my life about
Yeah.
all this while. So you hear people use words like purpose,
Yeah.
right? I believe your career is pretty much around or should be around